We're joined now by former federal prosecutor Andrew Cherkasky. Andrew, I want to go through these one by one at a time. What do you think of the term limits for the Supreme Court?
Well, term limits would require an amendment to the Constitution. The Constitution demands that Supreme Court justices have a term for life. So that's an initial hurdle to this extreme type of idea.
It's huge.
But it's huge. It's something that's undoable, basically. Yep. But it shows the extreme policies and ideas that are coming from the Biden-Harris camp in trying to essentially undo the laws that they don't like.
An ethics code, what do you make of that?
Well, an ethics code is interesting. They're already susceptible to impeachment if they were to violate the law or engage in other types of crimes or misconduct that it elevates to that level. But when you have a code of conduct, the question is who's in charge of that? The Supreme Court has those justices there as these ultimate arbiters, frankly, of ethics in our country. And so those are the people that have been approved to sit on the Supreme Court. They're essentially that role in and of themselves. It's Congress trying to take control of the Supreme Court, and I don't think that's a fair check on the system.
Biden suggests that the president would select one justice every 2 years, and that justice would serve for 18 years. What on earth is that about?
Well, once we start getting into this idea of court packing, the idea that we expand the court so that the leftists or the progressives have folks on the Supreme Court enough to get the laws that the way that they want them to be, we really could see that go downhill and spiral quite quickly. Especially, be careful what you're asking for, because if they start to expand the number of people on the court, then they might not like who that is. Imagine if they were to pass that right now. Then the Trump administration could, if he gets reelected, now have a super duper majority on the court. So it really can spiral into silliness. I think this is just a plug for votes.
What about the changes to presidential immunity?
Well, you have to be very careful when you start to be critical of the idea of this recent decision that the president has immunity. A lot of different senior positions throughout the country have immunity. A president's going to have some degree of immunity. You have to be able to act as a public official without the fear of prosecution. Police officers do it, judges do it, prosecutors do it. There is this idea that some people aren't necessarily above the law, but the law applies differently to them. And so no matter what this constitutional amendment would be, there's still some degree of immunity that comes with these types of jobs.
There's one more for you. Donald Trump has pledged to end birthright citizenship if he's elected. What kind of legal challenges would that face? Birthright citizens, if you make it to America and you deliver a child in America, that child is American. That's birthright citizenship. He wants to change it. What say you?
Well, this has not been challenged at the Supreme Court directly yet. There's in the 14th Amendment, it says essentially that the laws shall apply equally to all people in our country, born or naturalized here. And so there is a strong argument to make that that type of law would require a constitutional amendment in and of itself. However, there's some kind of nuanced legal arguments that perhaps the idea of being born here requires that you did so under certain terms, like being the product of legal immigrants to have come here. So I think Donald Trump faces a particularly high legal hill to climb if he wants to go that direction, but it's not been tested, and so it's hard to give a definitive answer on how that would turn out.
It sounds like nothing that the Biden wants to do the Supreme Court or Trump wants to do immigration. None of it's going to happen.
I think a lot of this is politics.
Yeah, right. Andrew, thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.